My mom, she's hurt. They hurt her and she won't wake up." 6-year-old Lila Warren burst through Warren Tech's lobby doors, her white dress torn and dirty. Behind her, the nanny stumbled in, phone pressed to her ear. Employees froze. The security guard rushed forward. But Lila ran straight past everyone to the janitor mopping the marble floor. Her small hands grabbed his gray uniform. "Mr. Daniel, please," she sobbed. "She needs help now." The man looked down at her. His weathered face showed nothing. Then something shifted in his eyes, cold and focused. He set down his mop. "Show me where." Daniel Carter had been invisible for 3 years. Every morning at 5, he arrived through the service entrance, punched his time card, and disappeared into hallways the executives never saw. He cleaned bathrooms, emptied trash, scrubbed coffee stains, while employees talked around him like furniture. At 39, Daniel looked older than his years. Gray hair at the temples, lines around his eyes, scarred hands that moved with practiced efficiency. He never made eye contact, never joined conversations, never stayed in one place long enough for anyone to really see him. Management appreciated his silence. He was reliable, invisible, forgettable, perfect. Daniel lived in a basement apartment 6 blocks away. The rent was cheap because the ceiling leaked and the heating barely worked. He didn't care. He owned almost nothing: a narrow bed, a small table, 2 chairs, a hot plate for cooking. On the scratched dresser sat a single framed photograph that he kept face down. He hadn't looked at it in 2 years. Most evenings, he volunteered at a community clinic in the poorest part of the city, teaching basic first aid to anyone who would listen. Street kids mostly, elderly folks with nowhere else to go. He showed them how to clean wounds, how to recognize the signs of shock, how to perform CPR. He never told them he used to be a doctor. He never told anyone. Cecilia Warren was everything Daniel wasn't: visible, powerful, successful. At 34, she'd taken over Warren Tech after her father's sudden death 3 years ago, transforming the struggling software company into a major player in enterprise solutions. She worked 16-hour days. She flew to investor meetings in 3 different cities each week. She negotiated contracts worth millions, while her daughter colored pictures at the corner desk in her office. Being a single mother and a CEO meant she rarely slept more than 4 hours a night. But Cecilia didn't complain. This was the life she'd chosen when she divorced Lila's father, a man who'd wanted a trophy wife, not a partner. Now she answered to no one except her daughter and her shareholders. Recently, though, something had been wrong. Numbers weren't adding up in the quarterly reports. Money was moving through accounts that shouldn't exist. When she asked her CFO, Richard Brennan, about the discrepancies, he smiled and assured her everything was fine. She didn't believe him. Lila was supposed to be at ballet practice every Thursday evening. Instead, she often snuck away from her nanny and rode the elevator down to the basement levels where she'd found her favorite person in the whole building. "Mr. Daniel," she'd call out, her voice echoing in the concrete corridors. Daniel would look up from whatever he was cleaning and shake his head, but there was always the hint of a smile. She'd sit on an overturned bucket and talk while he worked about her school, her friends, the book she was reading. She told him things she didn't tell her mother, about feeling lonely in the big office, about missing her daddy, even though he never called, about being scared sometimes when her mom worked late. Daniel listened. He never interrupted, never gave advice she didn't ask for. Sometimes he'd teach her small things: how to tie a proper knot, how to tell if fruit was ripe, how to whistle through her fingers. The other employees didn't understand why the CEO's daughter spent time with the janitor. Some whispered that it was inappropriate. Cecilia had noticed, but never stopped it. There was something gentle in Daniel's silence that made her trust him, even though she knew almost nothing about the man. The attack happened on a Thursday night. Cecilia stayed late, reviewing financial documents in her 20th floor office. The numbers told a story of systematic embezzlement, millions siphoned through shell companies and fake vendors. Richard Brennan's signature was on half the authorizations. She scheduled an emergency board meeting for the next morning. She was going to expose everything. At 10:30, she gathered documents into her briefcase and sent a quick text to her nanny downstairs. "Coming down now. 5 minutes." Lila was waiting in the lobby playroom with Mrs. Chen, her regular evening nanny, as she did every Thursday when Cecilia worked late. She headed for the elevator and pressed the button for sublevel 2. The parking garage was dimly lit, shadows pooling between concrete pillars. Cecilia's heels clicked against the floor as she walked toward her car. She didn't hear them coming until it was too late. 2 men in ski masks emerged from behind a van. She tried to run, but one grabbed her arm and yanked her backward. Her briefcase flew across the pavement. Documents scattering. Where are the files? The voice was muffled, but familiar. I don't know what. His fist caught her stomach. She doubled over, gasping. The second man grabbed her and shoved her hard against a concrete pillar. Pain exploded through her skull. The backup files. Where are they? Cecilia's vision blurred. One of them raised his hand to strike again. Someone's coming, the other hissed. We need to go. Now. They released her. Cecilia collapsed to the concrete. She heard footsteps running, a car door slamming, an engine roaring. Then silence. She tried to move, but her body wouldn't respond. Darkness crept in. She had to stay awake for Lila. Upstairs, Mrs. Chen checked her watch. 10:40. 15 minutes had passed. She tried calling. No answer. Lila, sweetie, I'm going to check on your mom. Stay close to me. They took the elevator down. The doors opened onto the dim garage. Mrs. Chen stepped out cautiously. Lila's hand gripped tightly in hers. Miss Warren? She called out. A faint moan came from ahead. Stay behind me, Mrs. Chen whispered. Then, Lila saw her. Mom. She tried to run forward, but Mrs. Chen held her back. Cecilia lay on the concrete, her face bruised and swollen, her arm bent at an unnatural angle. Papers were scattered everywhere. Mrs. Chen's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. I'm calling an ambulance. Don't touch her, Lila. We need Mr. Daniel. Lila pulled free. He can help. Lila, wait. But the little girl was already running back toward the elevator. Mrs. Chen knelt beside Cecilia, checking for a pulse with fumbling fingers. Shallow breathing. Alive, but barely conscious. Hold on, Mrs. Chen whispered. Help is coming. Lila burst back into the lobby. Her heart pounded. She looked around wildly and saw him, Mr. Daniel, near the main doors, emptying a trash bin. She ran straight to him and grabbed his uniform with both hands. Tears streamed down her face. Mr. Daniel, she sobbed. My mom, she's down there and she's really hurt and she won't wake up. Daniel dropped to one knee, his hands steady on her shoulders. Slow down. Where is she? The garage. Sublevel 2. Mrs. Chen is with her, but Lila's voice broke. Please. You have to help her. The security guard approached. I've called 911. Ambulance should be here in about 6 minutes. 6 minutes might be too long, Daniel said quietly. His voice had changed, sharper, focused. He looked at Lila. Take me to her, right now. Lila grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the elevator. In those 30 seconds, Daniel's mind shifted into a mode he'd locked away for years. Combat medicine. Trauma response. He calculated likely injuries. 6 minutes for an ambulance. But 6 minutes could mean death if there was arterial bleeding or airway compromise. The elevator doors opened. Daniel stepped out and immediately assessed the scene. Mrs. Chen kneeling beside someone. Papers scattered. No visible attackers. No ongoing threat. He moved quickly to Cecilia's side. Mrs. Chen looked up with relief. Thank God. I don't know what to do. Daniel was already kneeling, his hands moving with clinical precision. Unconscious, breathing shallow but present, significant facial trauma, left arm fractured. He checked her neck stable, checked her scalp laceration, bleeding but manageable. Checked her abdomen rigid. Internal bleeding. Likely. Call 911 back, he told Mrs. Chen. Tell them we have a trauma patient, unconscious, significant head injury, possible internal bleeding, suspected fractured ribs and arm, trauma team ready. Mrs. Chen stared at him. You're a janitor. Make the call. She fumbled with her phone. Daniel pulled off his gray jacket. Beneath it was something unexpected. A worn canvas bag strapped across his chest. He unzipped it with practiced efficiency. Inside were medical supplies that didn't belong in a janitor's possession. Sterile gauze, hemostatic agents, a collapsible cervical collar, surgical tape, a compact trauma kit that any paramedic would recognize as military grade. Lila stood a few feet away, watching with frightened eyes. Daniel glanced at her. Lila, I need you to be brave for your mom. Can you do that? She nodded, trembling. Good girl. Stay right there and talk to her. Tell her you're here. Lila moved closer and knelt down. Mom, it's me. Mr. Daniel is here. He's going to help you. Daniel worked with swift efficiency. He packed the head wound with hemostatic gauze, applied the cervical collar, checked her pupils, one slightly dilated, concerning but manageable, pulse thready but present, about 110 beats per minute. She was compensating for blood loss. He assessed her abdomen, bruising forming, definitely internal bleeding. He couldn't fix that here, but he could keep her stable. He splinted her left arm, positioned her in the recovery position to protect her airway, covered her with his jacket to prevent shock. Every movement was precise, every decision based on years of training his hands remembered. 4 minutes had passed since Lila found him. In the distance, sirens wailed. 2 minutes later, paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. A woman in her 40s, the lead paramedic, took one look and her eyebrows shot up. Who did the first response? I did, Daniel said, stepping back. The paramedic knelt and assessed Cecilia, checking Daniel's work. Her expression shifted from skepticism to respect. Cervical collar properly applied. Head wound packed correctly. Arm splinted. Recovery position. You kept her alive. She looked up. Military? Daniel didn't respond. As they loaded Cecilia into the ambulance, the paramedic turned back. Seriously, who are you? That was textbook battlefield medicine. Just someone who knew what to do, Daniel said quietly. A police officer arrived. I need statements from everyone, starting with you. Name? Daniel Carter. I'm the janitor here. The officer's pen paused. He looked at the medical supplies, then at Daniel. You're a janitor who carries military trauma equipment. I have first aid training. I happened to be nearby when the child came for help. I stabilized the victim until paramedics arrived. Daniel watched the ambulance pull away. Then he turned and walked toward the elevator. The officer called after him. But Daniel kept walking. He'd given his name. They'd find him if needed. But right now, he needed to disappear before anyone started asking questions he couldn't answer. Cecilia woke in a hospital room to machines beeping. Her head throbbed. Her arm was in a cast. Every breath hurt. Mom? A small voice, thick with relief. Cecilia turned her head slowly and saw Lila sitting beside the bed, holding her hand. Mrs. Chen stood behind her. Baby, Cecilia whispered. Her throat was raw. Memory flooded back. The garage. The masks. The pain. Then nothing. How? Her voice cracked. What happened? Mr. Daniel saved you, Lila said. He came down, and he had all these medical things, and he knew exactly what to do. The ambulance people said you would have died if he hadn't helped you. Mrs. Chen stepped forward. It's true, Miss Warren. That janitor, Daniel Carter, he treated you like a battlefield medic. The paramedics said his work was perfect. A nurse entered, checking monitors. You're awake. Good. You have a concussion, 3 fractured ribs, a broken arm, and internal bruising. You're lucky to be alive. After the nurse left, a police detective entered. Gray suit. Tired eyes. Miss Warren. I'm Detective Morris. I need to ask you some questions. Do you remember anything about your attackers? 2 men, ski masks, but one of them, she paused, his voice. I think it was Marcus Holloway. He works in my finance department, Richard Brennan's assistant. Morris wrote quickly. You're sure? Pretty sure. They were asking about files, backup files. I've been investigating embezzlement. Richard Brennan, the CFO. I found evidence he's been stealing millions. I was going to present it at a board meeting this morning. This morning is Friday. You've been unconscious for 8 hours. Morris leaned forward. We need those files. They're scattered in the garage, and I have backups. Cecilia tried to sit up and winced. What about the attackers? Not yet. But security footage shows 2 men fleeing at 10:38 p.m. Morris flipped through his notes. Now, about Daniel Carter. The janitor who saved you. We tried to take his statement, but he left. Do you know anything about him? Cecilia shook her head. Almost nothing. He's worked at Warrantech for about 3 years. Keeps to himself. My daughter likes him. Your daughter says he's her friend. Says he teaches her things. Morris closed his notebook. Because janitors don't typically carry military trauma kits and perform battlefield medicine, we ran his fingerprints. Cecilia waited. Captain Daniel Carter, U.S. Army Medical Corps. 3 tours in combat zones. Decorated trauma surgeon. 27 confirmed saves under fire. One of the best battlefield doctors in his unit. Honorable discharge 8 years ago. Since then, nothing. Until he showed up at your company 3 years ago as a janitor. The words didn't make sense. The quiet man who mopped floors was a decorated military surgeon? Why? Cecilia whispered. That's what I'd like to know, Morris said. I'd also like to know why he still carries field medical equipment and why he left before giving a full statement. He said he'd come to the station this morning, Mrs. Chen interjected. He wanted to make sure Lila was taken care of first. After Morris left, Cecilia lay back, her mind racing. Daniel Carter. A surgeon. A war hero. Working as a janitor. Where is he now? She asked. I don't know. He left after the ambulance took you. Cecilia looked at her daughter. Lila. Did Mr. Daniel ever tell you he was a doctor? Lila shook her head. No. He just said he likes to help people. He teaches kids downtown how to do first aid. What else did he tell you? Not much. He mostly listens. He's a good listener. Lila squeezed her mother's hand. Mom. Is he in trouble? No, baby. He's not in trouble. He saved my life. But even as she said it, Cecilia wondered. A man didn't go from decorated surgeon to invisible janitor without a reason. The investigation took 3 days. In that time, Marcus Holloway and James Chen were arrested trying to flee the city. Under interrogation, Holloway confessed. Brennan had ordered the attack. They were supposed to scare Cecilia, maybe rough her up, but it had gotten out of hand. The FBI executed search warrants on Richard Brennan's home and office. They found evidence of systematic embezzlement going back 2 years. $17 million stolen through fake vendors and shell companies. Brennan was arrested at his vacation home in the Hamptons. Cecilia's security team located Daniel Carter. He'd reported to work the next morning as if nothing had happened. When Detective Morris came to take his statement, Daniel was polite, concise, and revealed almost nothing. I have first aid training from my time in the military. I heard the child calling for help. I assessed the victim and stabilized her until paramedics arrived. That's all. You're a trained trauma surgeon. Why are you working as a janitor? That's personal. Morris sighed. Miss Warren wants to speak with you. She's been asking since she woke up. I'm glad she's recovering. But I don't think we have anything to discuss. She wants to thank you. No thanks necessary. But Cecilia wasn't the kind of woman who took no for an answer. While recovering in the hospital, she had her security team dig deeper. What they found broke her heart. 8 years ago, Captain Daniel Carter had been stationed at a forward operating base in Kandahar. He ran a makeshift hospital that treated both coalition forces and local civilians. By all accounts, he was brilliant calm under pressure, innovative, tireless. His wife, Emily Carter, was a nurse. She worked beside him every day. Colleagues described them as inseparable partners in work and life. In March, 8 years ago, a convoy carrying medical supplies to a village clinic was hit by an IED. Emily had volunteered for that convoy. Daniel was scheduled for surgery and couldn't go. The explosion killed 12 people instantly. Emily was among them. Daniel worked 18 hours straight trying to save the survivors brought back to his hospital. He saved 11 people that day, but his wife was already gone. After that, something in him broke. He finished his deployment, received an honorable discharge, and disappeared. No one in the medical community had seen or heard from him since. Until now. Cecilia read the report 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This man had chosen to spend 3 years mopping floors, because he couldn't forgive himself for surviving when his wife didn't. "I need to see him," Cecilia told her security chief. "He doesn't want to be found." "Find him anyway." They found Daniel in the poorest neighborhood, in a rundown community center. He was teaching homeless teenagers how to clean and dress wounds. He moved among them patiently, demonstrating, correcting technique, offering quiet encouragement. When Cecilia walked in arms still in a sling, bruises fading, the teenagers scattered. Daniel looked at her, and something like resignation crossed his face. "You should still be in the hospital," he said. "You saved my life." Cecilia's voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell anyone who you were?" Daniel packed his supplies. "Because it doesn't matter who I was. I'm not that person anymore. My daughter says you're her favorite person in the building. She talks about you constantly." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's a good kid. She shouldn't have had to see what she saw. She saw you save her mother. She saw you be brave when everyone else was afraid." Daniel finally met her eyes. "I wasn't brave. I just couldn't let her lose her mother. Not like that. Not when I could do something." The weight of what he wasn't saying hung between them. Cecilia understood then. This wasn't about heroism. This was about a man still trying to save the person he couldn't save 8 years ago. "I know about Emily," Cecilia said quietly. The words hit him like a blow. "You had no right to dig into my past. You saved my life. I wanted to understand who you are." Cecilia's voice was gentle. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about what happened to her. Don't give me sympathy I don't deserve." "Why don't you deserve it?" "Because I'm alive and she's not." The words burst out raw and angry. Daniel sank into a folding chair. "I'm a surgeon. I was supposed to save people. But I couldn't save her. I couldn't save the one person who mattered." Silence filled the empty center. Outside, car horns honked. Life continued. Indifferent. "Emily wanted to go on that convoy," Daniel said, his voice hollow. "She believed we could make a difference. I told her it was too dangerous," we argued. "Then I let her go anyway, because I was scheduled for surgery." His voice dropped. 6 hours later, they brought the casualties back. I worked on 11 people. I saved everyone, but Emily was already dead. She died instantly. There was nothing I could have done. "But you blame yourself anyway," Cecilia said. "Every day." Daniel looked up, eyes red. "Every day for 8 years. I've asked myself why I get to be alive when she doesn't. What right do I have to practice medicine when I failed the one patient who mattered most?" "So you stopped being a doctor." "I stopped pretending I deserved to be one." Daniel's voice was hollow. "I left the military. Let my license lapse. Found jobs where I wouldn't be responsible for anyone's life, where I couldn't fail anyone important." Cecilia sat beside him. "For 3 years. 3 years of peace. Then your daughter grabbed my hand and begged me to save her mother. And I couldn't let her feel what I've felt. I couldn't let her lose her mother. If there was anything I could do." They sat in silence. Finally, Cecilia spoke. "Daniel, I don't know what it's like to lose someone the way you lost Emily, but I do know what it's like to feel like you're failing, to feel alone, even when you're surrounded by people." Daniel met her eyes. "If you hadn't been there, if Lila hadn't known you, hadn't trusted you, I'd be dead, and she'd be alone." Cecilia reached out and took his hand. "You say you don't deserve to be a doctor, but a doctor is exactly what you are. It's who you are at your core. I can't go back to medicine. Every time I think about it, I see her face. I'm not asking you to go back. I'm asking you to move forward." Before Daniel could respond, Cecilia's phone buzzed. Her expression hardened. "The board meeting is in 2 hours. Richard Brennan is out on bail. His lawyers got him released pending trial. Daniel's eyes sharpened. Is he going to be there? He's a board member. He has the right to attend. Cecilia's voice was tight. He tried to have me killed, and he's going to sit across from me and pretend he did nothing wrong. Are you safe? I have security. The FBI will be watching. But I'm terrified. Not of him. Of losing. If the board doesn't believe me, he'll walk away. He'll win. Daniel studied her face, determination mixed with fear. For 3 years, he'd been running from purpose. Maybe it was time to stop. What do you need? He asked. Cecilia looked at him with surprise and hope. I need someone I can trust. Everyone at that company could be compromised. Everyone except you. I'm a janitor. You're a man who saved my life when you had nothing to gain. You're a man my daughter trusts completely. You're the only person I know who has no reason to help me, except that it's the right thing to do. Cecilia's grip tightened. What do you need? Daniel was quiet. Then he nodded. Tell me what you need. The plan was straightforward. Cecilia would attend the board meeting, present her evidence, and force Brennan to respond. But she needed someone outside the corporate structure who could intervene if things went wrong. The next morning, Daniel arrived at Warrantech, wearing a simple dark suit he'd kept for 8 years. He looked different. Several employees passed him and didn't recognize him. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. Daniel positioned himself in the hallway outside where he could see through the glass walls. Cecilia arrived at 8:45. Despite her injuries, she looked every inch the CEO. Board members began arriving, 8 people, ranging from 45 to 70. At 8:58, Richard Brennan walked in. Brennan was 52, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit. He had the kind of face that inspired confidence. The face of someone you'd trust with your money. The face of someone who'd ordered a woman beaten nearly to death. He went straight to Cecilia and extended his hand. Cecilia. Thank God you're all right. Cecilia didn't shake his hand. Sit down, Richard. Something flickered in Brennan's eyes. He took his seat. At 9 a.m., Cecilia called the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. I need to discuss something important. She opened her laptop and projected a spreadsheet. For the past 3 months, I've been reviewing our financial records. I found significant discrepancies. Board members leaned forward. What you're seeing is unauthorized transactions spanning 2 years. Money moved into shell companies, fake invoices, wire transfers to offshore accounts. $17 million stolen from this company. Shocked murmurs around the table. How is this possible? Elizabeth Morrison, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, asked. The audits were falsified. The oversight committee got doctored reports. It was an inside job, carefully planned over 2 years. By whom? Cecilia looked directly at Brennan. By our CFO, Richard Brennan. The room erupted. Brennan jumped to his feet, face red. This is outrageous. Cecilia, you suffered a serious head injury. Clearly, you're not thinking. I'm thinking perfectly clearly, Cecilia interrupted. I have documentation, Richard. Bank records, email communications, authorizations with your signature. The FBI has been investigating you for a week. Brennan's expression cracked. This is a coup. You're trying to force me out. Your father would be ashamed. My father would be ashamed of you. You were his friend. He trusted you, and you stole from him. I stole nothing. These records are fabricated. Then explain the shell companies. Explain the offshore accounts. Explain why Marcus Holloway and James Chen, your assistants, confessed that you ordered them to attack me. Silence. Every eye turned to Brennan. That's absurd. They're lying to save themselves. The FBI executed a search warrant on your home. They found documents linking you to every transaction. They found communications with the shell companies. They found evidence of money laundering. Brennan's face went white. You can't prove any of this. I don't have to. The FBI already has. They arrested Holloway and Chen. They're cooperating fully. And as of this morning, a grand jury has indicted you for embezzlement, conspiracy, and attempted murder. Attempted murder. Brennan repeated, voice dangerously soft. You think I tried to have you killed? I know you did, Holloway confessed. He gave them everything, phone records, payment records, your instructions. You ordered them to handle the problem. Those were your exact words. Brennan stared at her. Then something snapped. He moved around the table toward her, fast and aggressive. You, ungrateful little. He didn't get 3 steps before Daniel appeared. Daniel had been watching, reading Brennan's body language. The moment Brennan moved, Daniel moved faster. He stepped through the door and positioned himself between Brennan and Cecilia with fluid efficiency. Step back, Daniel said quietly. Brennan stared. Who the hell are you? Someone who knows exactly what you're capable of. And someone who won't let you hurt her again. Board members were frozen. Elizabeth Morrison found her voice. Security. But security wasn't necessary. FBI agents entered, badges displayed. There were 4 of them, led by a tall woman in a dark suit. Richard Brennan, you're under arrest for embezzlement, conspiracy, money laundering, and attempted murder. 2 agents moved forward with handcuffs. Brennan's face twisted with rage. As they cuffed him, he looked at Cecilia with pure hatred. You'll never survive this company without me. You're weak. You're not half the CEO your father was. She survived you trying to kill her. Daniel said quietly. That's stronger than you'll ever be. They led Brennan away. The conference room fell silent. Cecilia sank into her chair, trembling. Board members erupted into questions, but she held up her hand. Give me a moment, please. She looked at Daniel. Thank you. He nodded. You didn't need me. You had everything under control. I needed to know someone was there, that I wasn't alone. Elizabeth Morrison cleared her throat. Miss Warren. Who is this man? For the first time in 3 years, Daniel introduced himself honestly. My name is Daniel Carter. I work here as a janitor. And I'm a doctor. I'm the one who treated Miss Warren after the attack. The revelation rippled through the room. Someone whispered, The janitor? Daniel met their stares without flinching. He'd spent 3 years being invisible. Maybe it was time to be seen again. In the weeks following Brennan's arrest, Warren Tech underwent massive restructuring. Elizabeth Morrison was appointed interim CFO. 3 board members resigned. The finance department was audited completely. Cecilia worked brutal hours rebuilding trust. Through it all, Daniel remained present. He continued his maintenance duties, while the company figured out what to do with a decorated trauma surgeon who cleaned floors. Employees treated him differently now. People who'd ignored him for 3 years now nodded respectfully. Some stopped to thank him. Lila visited him every day after school. Everyone at school knows you're a hero. She announced one Thursday. I told them you saved her life. I just did what anyone with training would do, Daniel said. That's not what the news said. But Mom said, you don't like attention. Lila swung her legs. I think you're good, Mr. Daniel. You're the best person I know. Daniel paused and looked at her. This 6-year-old who'd trusted him completely. Your mom talks to me now. Lila continued. More than before. She asks how I'm feeling. If I'm scared. She picked at her shoelace. I did have bad dreams at first, but then I remembered you were there. Cecilia started seeking Daniel out during lunch breaks. She'd find him and ask if he wanted to sit in the courtyard. He always said yes. They'd eat sandwiches and talk about everything except work. She told him about the pressure of running a company, about the fear that she wasn't good enough, about the loneliness of being the only woman in most meetings. He told her about the kids he taught first aid to, about small moments that reminded him why he'd become a doctor, about the slow process of forgiving himself. Their conversations were quiet, unhurried. Neither rushed to fill silences. Both were learning to be present again. One afternoon in late October, Cecilia arrived with coffee and an unexpected proposal. I want to start something. A community health initiative. Free medical care for people who can't afford it. Trauma response. Training. Mental health support. Daniel looked skeptical. That's ambitious. And expensive. I can afford it. My father always said business should serve the community, not just shareholders. After what happened to me, I realize how lucky I am. Most people don't have resources. Most people suffer alone. It's a good idea. You should do it. I want you to run it. The words hung in the air. No, Daniel said immediately. I can't. Why not? I let my license lapse 3 years ago. I haven't practiced in nearly a decade. I'm not. You saved my life with a field kit, and 15 minutes, Cecilia interrupted. You train at-risk youth, in a building, with no heat. You still carry military medical equipment everywhere just in case someone needs help. You're already doing this work, Daniel. I'm just offering you resources to do it right. I can't go back to being a doctor. Every time I think about practicing again, I see Emily's face. You're not supposed to forget her. You're supposed to honor her. Emily was a nurse, right? She spent her life helping people. Daniel nodded. Then, the best way to honor her memory is to keep doing what she believed in. Keep helping people who need it. Keep being the doctor she fell in love with. Cecilia touched his arm. You don't have to be the same person you were. You just have to decide whether you're going to let guilt define you or let purpose guide you. Daniel stared out at the courtyard. He thought about Emily, about the life they'd planned, about the belief they'd shared that medicine was about service. What would Emily say if she could see him now? Would she want him hiding? Punishing himself? Or would she want him to keep fighting for people who had nowhere else to turn? I don't know if I can do this again. What if I fail? Then you'll have done everything you could, and that's all anyone can ask. You're going to fail sometimes. But you'll also save people. You'll make a difference. Before Daniel could respond, Lila came running with a piece of paper. Mr. Daniel! Mom! Look what I made! She unfurled her drawing a crayon picture of a man in a white coat, with a stethoscope, standing in front of a building with a red cross. Around him were stick figures of all colors. Underneath, Doctor, Daniel's hospital, where everyone gets help. Daniel stared at the drawing. The building had windows. The sun was shining. The stick figures were smiling. This is for your new hospital, Lila said proudly. Daniel looked at this child's vision, simple, hopeful, unburdened by guilt. Then at Cecilia, watching with quiet understanding. Maybe he couldn't save Emily. Maybe he'd carry that grief forever. But perhaps he could honor her memory. Okay, Daniel said quietly. I'll do it. The next 12 months transformed Daniel's life. He enrolled in a medical license recertification program. Months of study, refresher courses, examinations. He passed every exam on the first attempt. While he studied, Cecilia assembled a team to design the community health center. She hired architects who specialized in welcoming, accessible spaces. She consulted with social workers about what services were most needed. Daniel was involved in every decision. He insisted the center should feel nothing like a sterile hospital. No institutional white walls. No intimidating reception desk. Instead, they created a space with warm colors, comfortable seating, and a children's area. He interviewed every staff member personally. He wasn't looking for the most prestigious credentials. He was looking for doctors and nurses who understood what it meant to serve people failed by the system. Together, they built something that felt less like a medical facility and more like a sanctuary. Lila appointed herself the center's unofficial mascot. She drew pictures for every room. She insisted the waiting area needed a toy box because kids get scared at hospitals. She also made it her mission to ensure Daniel and her mother spent time together. Mom, you should invite Dr. Daniel to dinner, she'd say at least once a week. He's busy, sweetheart. He has to eat. Everyone eats. The truth was, Cecilia did smile more around Daniel. Over the months of working together, their relationship had deepened into something neither quite knew how to name. It was more than friendship, more than professional respect. They'd both survived things that should have broken them. They'd both learned to carry grief without being crushed. They'd both discovered that moving forward didn't mean forgetting it, meant honoring the past while building something new. One evening in April, as they reviewed construction plans, Cecilia asked something personal. Do you think Emily would be proud of what you're building? The question caught him off guard. He was quiet, considering it honestly. I think she would have loved this. The idea of accessible healthcare, the emphasis on dignity, the integration of mental health services. He smiled slightly. She would have had opinions about the paint colors, and she definitely would have insisted on better coffee. Cecilia laughed. Noted. I'll upgrade the coffee budget. But yes, I think she'd be proud. Not because of me, because of what we're creating together. Because it embodies what she believed in. Then I'm glad we're doing this, and I'm glad you said yes. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them, a current of understanding, of possibility. The Daniel Carter Community Health Center opened on a Saturday morning in early May. The weather was perfect, clear blue sky, 70 degrees, the kind of spring day that made you believe good things were possible. The neighborhood turned out in force, families who'd never had reliable health care, elderly folks rationing medications, veterans struggling with PTSD, teenagers needing someone to talk to. They came because word had spread there was a place now where you could get help without judgment, without bankruptcy, without being treated as less than human. Daniel stood at the entrance, greeting people. He wore scrubs, for the first time, in 8 years. They felt like coming home. By closing time, they'd seen 112 patients. Every exam room was full. Children played with the toys Lila had insisted on. Adults filled out intake forms with shaking hands, hardly believing this was real. Daniel moved through it all with calm efficiency, triaging cases, consulting with staff, performing exams, writing prescriptions, holding the hand of a crying mother whose baby had stopped breathing. The baby was fine, just congested, but the mother had been so scared. This was what he'd been made to do. Cecilia watched from the sidelines. She saw Daniel transform from the quiet janitor into Dr. Carter, confident, compassionate, skilled. She saw him come alive. That evening, after the last patient left, Cecilia brought coffee and takeout to his office. Successful first day? She asked. Beyond anything I expected. We helped over 100 people today. You helped them. This was your vision. Our vision. I couldn't have done this without you. They ate in comfortable silence. Finally, Cecilia spoke. I don't know what I would have done without you these past months. Not just the health center. Everything. You've been essential. Daniel met her eyes. So have you. You gave me a reason to stop hiding. You showed me that moving forward honors the past. Something shifted in the air. A recognition of feelings that had been building for months, before either could speak. Lila knocked. Are you guys done being mushy? Because I want to show Dr. Daniel something. Daniel laughed. We're not being mushy. You were totally being mushy. Adults think kids don't notice, but we do. Lila thrust a paper at Daniel. Look. It was another crayon masterpiece, Daniel in scrubs, surrounded by smiling stick figures. In the corner, a smaller figure that looked like a woman in a nurse's uniform with angel wings. That's your wife, Lila explained. Mom told me about her. I thought she should be in the picture too, because she's watching you help people, and she's proud of you. Daniel stared at the drawing, vision blurring. This 6-year-old had understood what he needed to hear, that Emily wasn't gone. That she lived on in the work he did. Thank you, Lila. This is the best gift anyone's ever given me. Lila beamed. Can Dr. Daniel come to dinner with us? Please. We should celebrate. Cecilia looked at Daniel. Would you like to? He nodded. Then it settled. We're having pizza and celebrating, and nobody is allowed to be sad because this is a happy day. She was right. It was a happy day. Over the following months, the health center became the heart of its community. More patients came every week. Daniel hired more staff, expanded services. The center treated hundreds of patients monthly. And increasingly, home meant wherever Cecilia and Lila were. It happened gradually. Cecilia and Lila would stop by after work and school. They'd bring dinner and eat together. On weekends, the three explored the city museums, parks, the harbor. They looked like a family. They felt like a family. 1 year after the attack, during the center's anniversary celebration, Daniel stood on a small stage. Cecilia and Lila sat in the front row. I have one more announcement, Daniel said. voice unsteady. A year ago, I was a man who'd given up on himself. He looked at Cecilia. Then someone showed me that second chances aren't about deserving. They're about being brave enough to accept them. Daniel stepped down and approached Cecilia. Guests went quiet. Lila's eyes went wide. Daniel knelt not in front of Cecilia, but in front of Lila. He pulled out a small box with a silver ring. Lila Warren, I would like your permission to ask your mother a very important question. Lila squealed and nodded enthusiastically. Yes, yes, ask her. Daniel stood and turned to Cecilia, who had tears streaming down her face. He opened a second box with a diamond ring. Cecilia Warren, you saved me long before I saved you. You saw me when I was invisible. You believed in me when I'd stopped believing in myself. You and your daughter gave me a family when I thought I'd lost everything. His voice broke. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't have days when the past hurts. But I promise I'll show up. I'll be present. I'll love you both with everything I have. Will you marry me? Will you let me be part of this family? Yes, Cecilia whispered. Then louder. Yes. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger. She threw her arms around him. Lila launched herself at both of them, creating a three-person hug. Guests applauded. But the three of them barely noticed. They were too busy holding each other. Too busy beginning the next chapter. A story that began with a desperate child, a hidden hero, and a love that healed the deepest wounds.